Hey up everyone and welcome. The kit for today's flower is available at ayupduckcreations.com. The link is in the description below. And today's flower is going to be the little balls of sunshine, the marigolds. But let's take care of business. Hit those subscribe and like buttons so you don't miss out on any videos for the future. The marigold measures approximately 2.5 to 3 inches, and this is what you're going to get in the kit. These are the tools that you're going to need for the flower today, and these are some options for doing any shading that you may want to on the flowers. Now you can either shade the flowers or not. Believe it or not, these two marigolds are made out of exactly the same colour felt. The one on the right is what I shaded. Now you can use the cheap makeup that I got from Walmart, I believe, with a paintbrush, and just rub that into the felt. An ink pad works well, or a crayon or a marker, whatever you have on hand and whatever works for you. Just practice on a little bit of spare felt if you have some and see what works for you. Me personally, I use an artist pastel. If you're going to use powders, make sure you spray it with hairspray so that the powders adhere to the felt. So let's get on with creating the flower. Today I'm going to show you how to do the shading on the flower. You don't have to shade, it's your personal choice, but make sure that you do the shading on both sides of the felt shapes. This flower today, I'm just shading the very tips of the petals. You can do as much or as little shading as you want to. And you're going to do the shading on all 6 pieces. Now we're going to take that rectangular piece that I've done a little bit of a scalloped edge there, and we're going to cut down into the valleys and fringe this piece slightly. This is going to create the centre of the flower. We just want a little bit of a tuft in the centre. Let's put the hook on the wire just so that the felt will stick to it a little bit better. And this piece just winds around the wire to create the centre of the flower. Now this first piece is going to be the centre of the flower, but I've just noticed that I haven't coloured one of the petals here, so let's colour that one in. And the first 4 parts of this petal I'm going to do higher up. I want a smaller tube for the centre of the flower, and then on the next 4 I'm going to go slightly further down the petal. Now for reference purposes and to give you an idea of how far up the petal I'm going, if you relate it to a human body, I'm going like in the chest area for these first 4 petals, and the remainder petals on this and the other shapes are going to be around about the belly button area. Strange description, I know, but hopefully that makes sense to you and it gives you an idea of locating where you need to put the glue. As you can see, the first 4 I've got the small tube, and then the second set of 4 I've got a wider tube. Now we're going to carry on with the other shapes and we're going to create these tubes. Again, body reference, we're going to put it in the belly button area. If you get a bit messy with this process, don't worry about it. You're going to have little cobwebs all over. Nobody's going to see them, nobody's going to see the mess. Now on this second piece that we've glued to, we're going to join it together and we're going to create a circle. And you're going to do exactly the same on the other 4 pieces. That first one is the only one that we're not going to create a circle with. And now we can start putting the flower together. Whichever way you want to do it, just make sure that you keep your petals in order. Make sure you've got the big ones last, the smaller ones at the beginning. And now this first one where we did the 4 different placements of glue, we're going to snip it in half. First of all, we want to deal with these smaller tubes that we created. That one's come apart a little bit. Let's put a bit more glue in there to create a smaller tube. And this is going to wind around that fringe that we made earlier. And we're going to put it on back to front. We're going to glue the back part of the flower, and we're going to go up the rib or the backbone of these 4 petals. We want this sitting nice and snug around that fringe that we put on there. Align it up so it's nice and level at the top, and then just wind it around. Now with this flower, don't be gentle, don't be scared to squeeze. The felt can take it. Just make sure it's nice and tight around that fringe in the centre. The beauty of felt is you can squeeze and you can mistreat it and it'll just forgive you. And the second half of the circle that we've got, we're going to glue around that centerpiece. Again, we're going to glue the front side this time, and then we're going to glue up the inside of those petals. And do exactly the same, make it nice and tight around that center. So now we're going to put this first circle in place. You're going to glue around the base of the centre of the flower and then position that circle so it's centred. But then now you're going to peel back those petals on the circle, and we're going to glue up inside the petals, each petal. We want it sitting nice and snug around that centre that we've already made. If you want to describe the dahlia as a symmetrical flower, the perfectly symmetrical flower, I think you would describe the marigold as like the organised chaos of a flower. And you may come across times during making the flower that you think, heck, I've made a right mess here. I don't know what I've done wrong, but just trust me, trust in the process, and we'll get there. And you'll have a perfect marigold. Now you're going to do exactly the same with this next circle. Glue it in position, centre it, and then peel the petals back and glue it in place. You just want to tuck those petals into any little gaps that you might have, just to make it a little bit more symmetrical as you go along, because the next few rows you're going to be a bit more organised about where you put the petals. And mid-video is never a good time to run out of glue. So like I said earlier, with these petals we're going to try and make the flower look a little bit more circular, a little bit more symmetrical. Position them, but again, don't be scared to squeeze them. The felt can take it. And now for these next 3 rows, we're going to be a little bit more organised about where we position these. So we're going to put glue around the base of the flower, but also down in these valleys that we've created, so that we can be a little bit more specific about where we lie these petals when we put this circle in position. So before you commit to actually squeezing the flower and making sure that everything's in place, just make sure that the petals are centered and they're sitting roughly evenly around the flower. And again, trust in the process. If you've got any pieces that are not suitably stuck, then just go in with a little bit more glue and make sure you've got them in the right place that looks good to you. And again, we're going to go down into those valleys and get these last 2 levels. But on these 2 circles, we're going to take time and position those petals right in these valleys so that they overlap the previous petals and everything's staggered evenly. You can position it, just don't push it in place, and then it gives you a chance to make sure that everything's sitting nicely. You can slide things around if they need to. And again, you're going to think this is a hot mess, but this next level will make everything look good. And this final one, just take your time and make sure that you've got everything positioned right in those valleys so that all those final few levels are staggered with each other. Just twist it around until you're happy, and then you can squeeze everything in place. We're trying to organise the chaos here. And there we have it. If anything isn't behaving itself, then just go in with a little bit more glue and make sure it's in the right position for you. And now let's move on to the sepal and the leaves. As you may know from my other videos, I'm a poker. I like to use a needle, but you can use scissors to make a hole in these little circles and the sepal. I'm going to use the circles just to build up the centre of the bottom of the flower. I'm going to put some glue right down in there because you're going to have a little empty space down in there. Just make sure it's puddling up, and then you can push these circles down, and it just makes sure that everything is glued together nicely right in the centre there, and it gives a little bit more body at the base of the flower. Then I'm going to put some glue on the top of there, and right in where the circles meet the flower, put a bead of glue. Take the sepal and push right on down. Again, don't be scared of hurting the felt. It'll survive. Just make sure that sepal is nice and tight against the flower. Now let's move on to the leaves. We're going to use the small thin wire so that we can bend the leaves easily. It's pretty self-explanatory from the video. We're going to use one long wire, that's going to be the main leaf, and then we're going to attach the 2 smaller leaves to the main wire. And for that we're going to use the floral tape. Now you may or may not know it's the stretching of the floral tape and the heat of your hands that create the wax that sticks everything together when using the floral tape. And for extra purchase, I usually twist the wires around each other so that the leaves won't easily be pulled out. It just gives an extra grip in there. Now we'll attach the leaves to the main stem and then we'll be done. Just position the leaves so that you can just see them poking out behind the flower. It just gives a nice bit of depth to the flower when you add the leaves to it, and again just wind that leaf stem around the main stem and just gives a bit more grip for the leaf. And there we have it, one beautiful marigold. Trust in the process and you will get there. Like I said before, you may think it's a hot mess halfway through, but the process will get you to the end. Now whether you're using yellows, oranges, whether you're shading the marigolds, you're going to come up with different marigolds every time. Like I said before, it's organised chaos, but it's a beautiful organised chaos. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Again, the kits are available at aotduckcreations.com, and I'll speak to you all again later.